I would say be fearless. It really does take that. I have talked to so many people. I was coaching football for my son, just the little league football type stuff, seventh, eighth grade kind of a thing. One of my assistant coaches, great guy, still good friends to this day. Um, he came up to me and says, we got talking about business. Like he goes, I have got the idea that I know will make me a millionaire. I just know it will. And I'm like, awesome. What is it? He's like, I'm not going to tell you. You'll go do it. And I said, well, one, I won't, but two, and I said, fine, don't tell. I don't care what it is. I said, why don't you go do it? He literally said, because I'm afraid I'll fail.
Mm.
And I think that has stopped more people from ever becoming successful than any other thing. And
Hey everyone, this is Devon Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devon Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the CEO and founder of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, if I don't get too tongue-tied, Devron Larson, and introduced Devron a bit. He grew up on a farm, so man after my own heart. I don't know if I grew up on a farm technically. I grew up doing a lot of things on a farm, but didn't actually grow up on a farm. Dad always told him to get an education, ended up majoring in chemistry, at least, or went into chemistry. And then I think in the 4th year of college doing a lab, couldn't picture himself being in a lab for the next 40 years. So decided didn't want to finish up the degree. Instead went and bought a franchise in carpet cleaning, sold that, invested with a company and a friend. That went well. And then I think lost everything. He can correct me if I get anything wrong. Started up another carpet cleaning business at the same time, was working for, I think it was a marketing company. And then the marketing company, around kind of the housing crash and that, took a turn. And one day saw another carpet cleaning van on KSL, put down a deposit. After he put down the deposit, told his wife that that's what they were going to end up doing, or got back into that, started up the company, took a huge pay cut, invested everything they had, and then been building that and growing it ever since, and making it to a success. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Devron.
thanks a lot, Devin. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now I'm worried I'm gonna call you Devon, because Devron and Devon are so similar that I'm gonna end up messing up your name because because it's too similar. But welcome on. So I dived through a little bit of your journey and kind of give that quick run through of kind of what your journey was. But now let's go back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about growing up on the farm, getting an education, and then how your journey went from there.
Yeah, just great parents, good work ethic, of course. Taught me that. Every summer I'd go up on a farm. Most of my friends were out, goofing off and playing and stuff, and going on scout trips and things like that. And I was always working, and I didn't even know it. And that's just how life was. I didn't really understand any different. And when I got older, one of my friends said, "Yeah, we always felt really bad for you." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because you just always had to work every summer, all summer, the whole entire time, while we were all like goofing around." And I'm like, wow, I didn't know the difference. I didn't even know that was an option. So, just worked really hard. But the whole time, my mom and dad were really big on education, because they didn't have degrees or anything like that. And, but they were kind of entrepreneurs as well. They owned a farm, they owned like a bowling alley, they owned some apartments and real estate and things like that. And they did okay. They ended up actually starting some restaurant franchises and did pretty well with that. And anyway, but so I just kind of had the entrepreneur mindset, but they always just wanted me to go to college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was going to do this and this and this. And I thought, well, I really like chemistry for some reason, and I like science and math. And so I thought, well, I'll major in chemistry. That sounds like a cool thing to do. Maybe sound a lot smarter than I really was, but, and, so anyway, I got going into school, and I was in about 3.5 years. And I just remember specifically being in a lab one day and, mixing a couple of things together, and then watching it for a few minutes, and mixing some more stuff and watching it for a half an hour. And I'm like, this is awful. I hate this. And then it dawned on me, like, well, I love the learning of chemistry. I like the classroom part of it, which was crazy, but the lab part, I just dreaded and hated. And it dawned on me that point, I'm like, well, this is what you're going to be doing every day, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And it shocked me. It literally was like, oh, like an aha moment, like, holy smokes, I'm not just going to be a student forever. I'm actually going to be doing this. And so um, it didn't take me very long, just a few weeks, to realize that that is not what I want to do. So um, while I was going to school, just to work my way through school and pay for it, I was managing a Cam Dry carpet cleaning franchise.
Hmm.
And I decided, I'm not going to do the school thing anymore. And so talked to my wife, and we made some decisions, and we had the opportunity to buy that franchise. And so at 23, I went and got a $40,000 loan, and well, 39,000. And to me, which back then, 30 years ago, was a fortune. I thought that was just a crazy amount of money. Um,
But let
and
me,
we
and
bought this
before you
franchise.
get too far, I just had one quick question. I'm guessing that when you tell your journey, other people ask. I mean, you've been 3.5 years, you're almost done with the degree. What, if it would have been me, and I'm not telling you how to live your life or do your journey, it would have just finished it out, even if I never intended to use the degree. So what was the thought process in saying, hey, yeah, I could finish it out? On the other, and I get on the other hand saying, if I'm never going to use this degree, if I never want to go down that route, why would I spend another dime on type of thing? But how did you build that? Because I would assume that parents or you or other people had thought, I'm close, why don't I finish? So kind of how did you make that decision?
Never really cared what anyone else thought. And so I just, I'm a very, I make decisions quick, and sometimes that's good. In business, there's times where you don't have a lot of time to think about stuff. But this wasn't specifically that case. I had plenty of time, but it was that definitive of an aha moment for me. Like, oh my goodness, like I do not want to do this. So I finished the semester I was in, and I actually would have had another full year to go. I didn't just have one more
Mm,
semester to go. It would have been, with the way I did things and whatever, it would have been about another year. And
okay.
so, but it was pretty definitive moment for me. Like, no, I am not doing this. I will not do it. So there was just no point in me going any further into that specific degree. And, could it have opened some doors? Could it have been a better thing? Sure. I'm sure it would have, but I really don't have too many regrets, because I literally never would have stepped foot in a chemistry lab had I done it. Well,
Mm,
I don't think I would have.
mm-hmm.
But I just love the entrepreneur aspect of things. I feel very comfortable. I don't know if I'm very good at it, but I'm very comfortable with taking risk, and I just, you know that never was a concern for me. So just like, hey, make a decision, move on, go with it, take some risk. It's just never bothered me. Now, luckily, I have a phenomenal wife, and she's always supported these crazy ideas and stuff. And sometimes they worked out really good, sometimes they worked out not as good. But that's just my personality.
Definitely makes sense. So, and I get it. I said it in the one sense, I did it a bit different. I got to the end of engineering school and said, oh, I like engineering, but I don't want to be an engineer. So that's hence why I went and did law school and did intellectual property, which was, I like being engineering. It was kind of a good mix for me to, but I definitely getting towards the end of the degree and say, okay, this really isn't what I want to do. It's not what I'm passionate about, and I can't see myself doing this for the remainder of my career. So now you went and bought Lever seems to, kind of went out, bought the franchise, bought the cleaning stuff,
Yeah.
started on that. And how did that go? Or as you dive into it, as you took the $39,000 loan, as you mentioned, how did
Yeah.
that go for you?
Uh, you know, as a 23-year-old kid, and it was a scary step, but I had done it. I'd been managing that for about a year and a half, so I kind of knew the ropes of the industry a little bit. But then when it came to be mine, then it was obviously, you treat it a little bit different, like everybody. When it's actually your business, you treat things a little bit different. But that's the one thing I did learn about when you invest, is you are committed. And I will, if we're talking about, what are some things that I've learned in my journey, and I'll just sidetrack here for just a second and say,
Sure.
that's one thing. If you don't invest something, and you can just walk away at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when the times get tough, lots and lots of people walk. Not everybody, but lots of people walk. And so if you're not going to invest something, whether it's money would be the most important, but especially just your heart and soul and your time. But you've got to invest something, or when times get tough, which they will in any entrepreneurship type thing,
Mm-hmm.
you'll just walk. And so that's just a little side note. But we didn't really have the option to walk. So we spent about the first 4 years building that up. Got to a point where it was doing pretty well. We actually hired a person to manage that for us full time. I still kind of help oversee it and stuff, But then I had a chance to start another company with a cousin of mine, and where we did like sales and marketing stuff. Anyway, and it went really, really well for the first couple of years, and then um, the fulfillment company we had fulfilling the product portion and the service portion that we were actually marketing and selling. We didn't find out that they weren't fulfilling for quite a
Mm,
while, and then by the time we found out, it kind of collapsed in on itself, and we had a lot of
mm.
refunds, and we had to reimburse a lot of people. And anyway, one thing led to another, and I sold that Chem Dry uh, about a year after that, and a year before that, I sold it to help fund that marketing company and stuff. And then when everything went bad, we end up literally losing everything. Again, one of those things where you take the risk, you roll the dice. In this case, we got kind of burnt on that one, and we lost everything. We walked out of our house. We gave our cars back. We had 3 kids, small kids at the time. We had I bought this little old truck, Toyota truck, to get us around. I think I paid $1,500 for it, and that was all we had to our
Mm.
name. Anyway, and so we started over, and I started another carpet cleaning company. Did that for about 6, 8 months. Sold it. Got enough money from that to kind of get us
Now,
back on our
one
feet.
one question I just had out kind of curiosity, because I get, there, I completely agree. You have to strap in if you want to be an entrepreneur. You want to run your own business, do your own thing. It is far from certain, and you're going to have those times where you feel like you're a success and times where you feel like you're an utter failure. You're going to hit both of them, and you better be prepared for both of them, because they both have their pros and cons. But now, as you do hit, you kind of lose the house, you lose the life savings, so to speak, you lose the cars. You kind of going through what would be a very low point in entrepreneur journey. How did you pick yourself back up and say, okay, I just got out of a carpet cleaning business, it didn't go well, I'm going to start another one right out, or start out? And was it, hey, I got to earn an income, it's out of necessity? Was it, hey, I still think I can do this right, and I've learned the lessons I need to do differently? Or kind of how did you move on from that and start to rebuild?
I don't know. It's weird because I never really, I mean, yes, it was a low point. I certainly didn't pick that outcome, and that's not what I wanted to do, but it never really, I don't know. I never felt like depressed or like, oh, I'm a failure. I mean, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. We actually had to move in with like my in-laws for like 6 months just to get back on our feet. Um, but my sister, after this all happened, my my sister came up to me. She goes, "Well, did you file for like unemployment or for welfare or this or this or this?" I'm like, I didn't even know I could. It literally never even crossed my mind. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, no. And she's like, well, why? And I'm like, well, I had a job. I started this company. She's like, well, I know, but you can still get all these benefits, this and this and this. I'm like, it never crossed my mind. So I just never thought, well, I just got to go. And so this ended, and now it's time to go, and you got to move on. I don't know. I just never even really had time to think about it.
Hmm.
Okay, we're moving on. We got to go.
Hmm.
And that's just my person. I was like, hey, you just got to go. And so it was like, hey, what can I do? What do I know? I said, well, I can start this up. I still had some equipment, so I just started back up. I started marketing. I literally went door to door. I gave away my service for free just so people get talking about me to begin with. Um, I just did. I did anything I could do to just pick myself back up. And within about 6 months, we were able to kind of get back on our feet. We moved out of there and got just a little apartment to begin with, and then about a year later, and while doing that, I then sold that company, and that kind of gave us enough money to move on. And then I went to work for this marketing company just as a little bit more stable job. But then I started another carpet cleaning business on the side as well. So I've always had a carpet cleaning business just because it's something I know and I do, and I'm pretty good at, and just a way for me to make a lot of extra income whether I had a job or not. And then I just thought, hey, I'll be at this marketing company just for a year or two, just to get my feet on the ground. Such a great company, great people, great guys, loved working there. They treated me super good. I moved up the ranks quite fast, still having the carpet cleaning business on the side. That was kind of my golf and travel money. That's what I used it for, really.
Hmm.
To a lot of fun trips and a lot of, I like to golf, um, and I thought, gosh, but end up being there for 12 years
Hmm.
at this marketing company. It was great. Just, again, great people and great experience. Well, in 2008 through 2012, they took a beating in their business and their profits and stuff. And in
Hmm.
about January 2012, I could kind of see the handwriting on the wall where things were headed. It wasn't looking good. And so I thought, well, I better make a plan B. I had some savings. I had a 401k, had some money, not a ton, but I had some. And
Hmm.
we had a house and everything. And thought, well, okay, what's plan B? I better start looking for it because I knew it was coming.
Hmm.
Well, I found this carpet cleaning van online, and it was kind of the setup they wanted. It was kind of the full package. It was a beast. It was a really good one, and I really wanted it. And so it was about a 2.5 hour drive away from where I lived, and I went and looked at it one day, and drove down. Like, yep, that's what I want. I put a $10,000 deposit down on it. Said, hey, I want it, and this was in January. About a week and a half later, it was a Saturday. Oh, it was a Friday night, and I said, "Hey, do you want to drive to Fillmore with me?" That's where the van was at. She's like,
What's in
"Fillmore? What?"
Fillmore?
And
We've
Fillmore's
never
like,
been in
if you know
Fillmore.
anything about Fillmore, it's this little dinky town that she actually had a couple cousins that lived there, an aunt or something like that. And she thought I was
Hmm.
want to go over and visit her cousins. I'm like, no, I won't do that. I said, I bought a carpet cleaning van. And she's like, you did what? I said, yeah, I bought a carpet cleaning van and has all the equipment. And I was telling her about it. She's like, why did you do that? And I said, well, just, I wanted it. It's cool. And, who knows when we'll ever need it. She's like, well, do you think we'll ever need it? And that was the first time I actually broke the news to her that it was like, there's a possibility we're going to need a backup plan. She's like, really? I said,
Hmm.
yeah. And she goes, well, how much did you pay for this van? I said, between what I put down and we took over his lease on it and some things like that. I said, I was about 45, 50,000. So I think I said, I was like 50,000. And she's like, oh my gosh. And again, amazing wife. She's like, okay, whatever. Another crazy idea this guy has. And
Well, you have a
just
better
being,
wife than I do. If I came in and I said, I put down 10,000, it's going to be about 40 or 50,000. My wife would have been like, go see if you can get your money back. And then we'll talk.
yeah, she's amazing. Like
That's
literally,
awesome.
I couldn't do this without her. And so I can't say enough good things about her. But anyway, she's like, fine, whatever. So we get in the car, we drive over there and we get the van. And on the way back, it is an absolute white out blizzard. Like took
Hmm.
about 2 hours to drive there to get there. Took us 4.5 hours to get home in the dark, in the blizzard. And so anyway, we got this van and lo and behold, about 6, 8 months later, July of 2012, about 6 months later, the prediction came true and that career ended at that marketing company. And so I said, all right. And I had kind of some things going before then as far as the carpet business. Cause again, I started focusing on it a little bit more just so I could see again what was coming. But in July of 2012, my brother-in-law who bought one of the other businesses that I had, we partnered up. His name's Cody. And so we actually partnered up and created a company called Power Plus, and we did carpet cleaning and restoration. And literally, and we bought another van. I cleared out my 401k, I had some investments, cleared that account out, cleared out our savings. We maxed out 2 credit cards worth $20,000 each. So we put about 150,000 or so into this company, just rolled the dice, did everything. But again, and what's weird is if now that I'm sitting here saying, I'm like, what an idiot, who would do that? But back then I literally didn't even think about it. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're going to go for it. That's what we do. And we did. And we rolled the dice. And that first year was tough.
Hmm.
I think figured out from what I was making, the marketing up, I was making, a pretty high 6-figure income to what we were making. We took about an 80% pay cut for the first year.
Hmm.
It was tough. Couple funny little things about that. And I'm going to make a point about this later, but we came home from Thanksgiving of my sister's house, and the power was out.
Hmm.
And so we thought, oh, we'll just wait till the power comes back on. Well, it didn't come on. It didn't come on the next day. So we called our neighbors, like, do you guys have power? I'm like, yeah. And we're like, oh, must just be us. Well, the power wasn't out. They turned our power off, and so that's what happens when you don't pay the power bill for like 3 months. I don't know, weird. They
Crazy.
stopped
They
giving you
actually,
power.
just like everybody else, somehow they want to
Yeah,
get paid.
weird. I didn't understand that, I guess. But anyway, we're like, oh, okay. So for a couple days, we just didn't have power, and it was weird, and it was we had 6 kids, from, I think our oldest was 15 or 16 on down. And so we're just like, all right, we just made do. And we
Well,
had a
and I think
generator.
just to highlight, I think one of the things that you'd skipped over that we talked a little bit before is so you went and bought this van, you got this going, and this was really, I think you said in the bottom of the recession, right? It's
Yeah.
2012,
Yeah.
and financial markets aren't doing well, foreclosures are at a high, all those things are at a high, and which are not a good, at least
Yeah.
in conventional wisdom, not a good time to go spend a whole bunch of money, mortgage
Yeah.
everything, leverage yourself up, and try and start a business. Worked out looking back, but
Yeah.
did that ever cross your mind, or you're just saying, hey, this is a good opportunity, I think you can make a look of it, it's the band I want, and you have self-confidence and just get going? Did it ever cross your mind that the timing was less than ideal?
Well, I'm sure it crossed my mind, but it was more like, what option do I have? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh, this is a horrible time, I shouldn't do this. It was more like, well, I've got to do something. What's my game
Mm-hmm.
plan? And so that was it. So it didn't really, I may have thought about it, but I don't ever remember constantly being like, oh, this is a horrible time. Now, it's interesting you say that though, because um, before we actually, started full time in July, I was asking, talking to a few people, and I had probably 4 or 5 people flat out tell me that. And again, where I live is in Fairview, and if you don't know where that is, the town's about 1,200 people.
Mm-hmm.
The county we live in, Sanpete's one of the poorest counties in the state. We're all just a bunch of old redneck farmers down here, and that's what we
I
are.
laugh. I'm right there with you. So I'm in
Yeah,
a small town. I like small towns, so I can just imagine, because that's where I grew up as
yeah.
well.
A lot of people want to come down here, but it's hard to make a living, right? And so,
Mm.
it's the bottom of the recession. Nobody has money, it seems like. And I had no more than 3 or 4 people tell me that we will never make it down here. I mean, literally, like I had one specific guy that I know really well. He says, yeah. He goes, you're going to do that? He goes, my son came down here a few years ago and started a carpet cleaning business, and he couldn't make it work. He goes, I don't think you can do it. Well, and my partner Cody, it was funny, phenomenal guy, and now he's the backbone of our company.
Mm.
He's a workhorse. But I told him, and this is just how my mind thinks. And again, yeah, if you looked at that, the recession, we have no lot, not we've invested every penny we've got. We don't have a ton more. We're not making very much to begin with. This and that and the other. And he's like, well, do you really think we can make enough to make a living? I said, Cody, I believe within 4 years we could be doing well over $1 million. And he laughed at me, literally. He goes, okay,
Well, no, if I were to defend him, it's good. I think every entrepreneur I've ever met, or any startup guy, always thinks they're going to be we're going to be rich, and it's
yeah,
so and so if I were to because I've been there too. And I told my wife and we've done well, and I've done some businesses, but every time I have a new idea or start a new business or do anything else, she's like, yeah, here's another crazy idea. You say you're going to make a lot of money. Let's wait until you actually do it, and then we'll talk. So I
yeah.
get that. I bet on both sides of that conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he bought one of my other businesses before, one of those ones I bought and sold. He bought it, and he'd been running it for 8-10 years, and he'd never even. I don't think he's phenomenal. He's one of those guys that can do everything, and so
Mm.
he had a lot of irons in different fires. He wasn't just a carpet cleaner, right? But he'd never been able to make a big, huge living out of just carpet cleaning. He did good with all the other things he got going. So down in this little podunk town, little poor county, at the bottom of recession, it was I'm sure hard for him to believe it. But I told him, I said, in 5 years, I believe we could be doing over $1 million. Well, it didn't take us 5 years; it took us 4. And so, now that doesn't mean we're making $1 million. That's just we did that in volume.
Wait.
But
Let me get this straight. Revenue doesn't equal how much money you take home and put in your
no,
pocket.
I
No,
know
and I'm
we're
joking, because that's the conception. Everybody's like, oh, you've done 7 and 8 figure businesses, you must be just ready to retire. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Just
yeah,
because a business makes that much
right,
doesn't mean that's much how much I make.
yeah.
So
Weird concept. I know, huh?
I know it's crazy, but yeah. So and you guys are still doing that, right? The business is still around. You're still going gangbusters and still going
Oh
forward.
yeah, we're expanding. Last year was obviously a little speed bump, but coming into this year, we're looking back at like the last 2 years previous to this, even the year before COVID. Um, we're almost double what we were just a couple years ago, and our biggest problem, honestly, is finding, employees. We're growing pretty fast. And so, fast forward now to today, we've got 6 or 7, we've got 6 cleaning vans out there. We've got a full flood restoration business. We're doing, well over, almost double what we ever hoped we would do. And
Mm.
anyway, got other things happening stuff now. We're looking at actually doing some franchising ourselves, and I've taken that chemistry background, believe it or not, and we actually worked with some really good chemists and developed a specific cleaning product just specifically for us. That, well, you know that because we're working with you on the trademarks and
Yeah, I
stuff.
was gonna say, full disclosure, Devron's an awesome client of ours. So it's for everybody that wondered, don't go take his trademarks, because otherwise we'll have to come after you.
And just so you know, the way I found out about Miller Law Firm and Devon is he contacted me to do this podcast. He wasn't soliciting me he didn't even know if I had anything to trademark. I don't even know how you heard about it. You read a story online or something, and
Yeah,
anyway.
I think it was, I read the story online, connected on LinkedIn, reached out to you,
Yeah.
thought it'd be fun to have you on the podcast. So
Right.
I just love sharing the startups and small business stories. So it was a fun way to connect.
Well, it's funny because it was perfect timing, because we were looking to get our new product and our business and everything trademarked. And matter of fact, it didn't even dawn me. It took us like 2 or 3 interactions to be like, oh wait, Miller IP Law. Oh wait, you do.
But you do IP. Oh wait,
property.
we need we're looking for some. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So it worked out really good, and now here we are. But fast forward to today, and it's great because now as I don't actually do hardly any of the cleaning anymore. I get on the van every once in a while when need to, or training a guy or things like that. But really now my role is my title's CEO, but we don't use a lot of titles here, but it helps people understand the role.
You take a managerial role. You're kind of now looking for the vision and how to grow it and improve it and franchise it. And I certainly get that. And it's always interesting because that's kind of where I've been with a lot of businesses. You start out, you're the guy that does everything. You're everything from taking out in the garbage to doing payroll to marketing and sales to doing the actual work and everything in between. And then as the company matures and evolves, then you're saying, okay, I only have so much time. Where is my time most valuable? And then you start to focus that out and you become less of a generalist and more specific in the areas you can add the most value. So definitely makes sense.
And you find the right people. And that is key. That is the absolute key to growing a business. You cannot grow a business without having the right key people in place. And more importantly, you just got to trust them. You got to find people you can completely trust. Like our office, we have an office manager. Her name's Sherry, and we call her the general because she literally runs the company. And she is flat out amazing, and it just allows all the rest of us to focus on what we have to, and then we have, managers that run this and the, managers that run that. And I trust them implicitly. And what's great about it is when you give them that trust, you give them that confidence, they have a chance to shine. And even though you're still guiding and helping, and you help portray the vision, what it allows them to do when you just give them the confidence and the power to run it, it's incredible. And they've all stepped up, and it's Cody and other people. I have a son now that, he does a role, and if you hire the right people, you can fully trust out there to keep your name and your reputation, your brand. And that's huge. Then you can grow a company, and we have an incredible team. And I assess a lot of our success to the team, not just, it might have been my vision, but the team is what helps create it.
No, and I definitely get that, because I get, and I just have to smile because a lot of what everybody's journey is different, but there's always fun to see the commonalities. Yeah. And I always get the question because I do my own IP firm, and I have a couple other businesses that I'm running, or I'm technically CEO of, and then people say, oh, how do you juggle all those? And I says, well, I got a really good team to where I give a lot of that oversight, that vision, I give direction, I make sure things are done right, but I also have a lot of people that are assisting me to make it. And if I didn't have the team there's no way I could do it all on my own. So I definitely get where you're coming from. So, well, as we start to wrap up the podcast, and there's always so many more things I'd love to touch on that never have time to, but as we start to wrap up the podcast, I always have 2 questions I ask at the end of the podcast. So we'll go ahead and jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
The worst decision I've ever made, hiring the wrong people, for sure. And luckily we've hired, for the most part, really good guys. We actually decided to expand. We're in Utah, obviously. We had a really good guy that that wanted to kind of partner with us or work with us. And he was in Temecula, California. We thought, hey, we know this guy, we trust him. He's actually a family guy, brother-in-law, great guy though. And the two things I learned from that was, one, we didn't make him invest anything. And this is coming back to what I said earlier. If you're going to, especially if you're ever going to expand or partner or bring people on, they absolutely have to invest money, not just time. Time is too easy to walk away from. Money's not. So we're like, hey, we started this, we invested about, we bought a new van, we bought all the stuff, we spent about $100,000, got it all set up. We did all the marketing, got it going, doing really well. And then, it kind of got to where the honeymoon phase of it wore off, and that was actually some work involved. And you were like, hey, you got to be the guy on the ground. We need you to go out and do this and this and this. We'll do all the marketing. And anyway, kind of got to the point where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so he walked away. And there were a couple other things on our end that we need to take responsibility for. It wasn't all his fault. I want to blame it all on him. But because there was no financial commitment to it, he kind of walked away. Now we brought that van back, we expanded, we used it, so it all worked out okay. We made it work, but one of the worst decisions I made was hiring the wrong people for the wrong position. And then one other incident, just to quickly help you understand this, but we hired one guy specifically. He was a good technician. Matter of fact, he had the most experience. He had the most years in the industry. He could do all kinds of different things that even I can't do in the company. Like he had skills that not even I can do. So he was our most profitable employee. Literally, he brought in more revenue than any other employee, and not even by a large margin. But what he did to our culture and what he did to our company as far as like attitude and things like that, we're constantly getting calls from people on the highway we had a couple, anyway, I won't get into that, but anyway, it really damaged our brand as well. And it made it really hard. And so he's the only person that we've ever actually fired in the company because of that. And it really did affect our culture. And so I would say probably the worst decision was hiring the wrong people. Really take a look at, what is your culture? Does that person fit your culture? Can you trust them fully? And if you can't, do not hire them. I don't care how much money they can make you. It's not worth it.
No, and I agree 100%. And it's interesting. I think everybody goes in, there's always a couple misconceptions, or a lot of people go into one, and when you first get into your own business or a startup, you always think everybody's going to work as hard as you are. I think it's one that you think then you hire people and you're like, wait, they just are working a few hours. They want to get paid for every little thing. They're not invested. They don't. And it's one of those where you always think, and then you always think that they're going to work as hard as you as, and they don't. And I'm not faulting them. It's much different when you're the person that's founded it and you're putting in the blood, sweat, and tears, and you're saying, I've got to make it work. But it's always an interesting dynamic. And the second thing I always think is people always think they're a lot better at hiring than they are, at least out of the chute. There's a lot of things that you think, I can read people, I know people, they'll do this and they'll do that. And I'm not going to make the same mistakes that I used to see my bosses make. I'm going to do it great. And it's hard. It's hard to find the right person. And, you do interviews, you try and meet them, you try and get to know them. But if you can get the right person, they can make a huge difference. And if you get the wrong person, just as you said, they can affect the culture and they can change things in directions. They start to pull you, and it's usually that death by 1,000 cuts, to where they start to pull you in directions. You say, okay, well, I wouldn't do it that way. I don't like it. But, and you make exceptions and you make more exceptions, and it keeps pulling you in different directions. So I absolutely agree that, hiring the right people and taking that time, and a lot of time, and I'll definitely let you chime in, but one of the things I found is taking it and slowing the process down, so that, too often when you're especially startup small business mode, you're running around, we need somebody, we need them now, we got to get this person in the place because we have too much work to get done. So you go and hire someone, you do it too quickly. And then because you do too quickly, you don't take the time to slow down and vet them. And while, yes, you got somebody quickly, it's not the right person. You end up spending more time than if you just slowed it down in the first place.
That's really true. And here's the deal. Don't beat yourself up if you do hire someone that isn't a perfect fit and they quit or they walk away, because that'll happen no matter what. It just will. That's just the nature of people. When they see an opportunity come up, they go for something different or whatever. But if you like you said, if you can vet it, if you can screen a little bit, if you can somehow get a little bit of taste of who they are, and what they're like on a integrity level, it'll go a long way. But again, don't be afraid to hire. When you need to hire, you got to hire. And you can't always wait for the perfect guy. Sometimes you have to take what you get and then try to mold that by being the kind of person, with the kind of boss, the CEO, the manager, to help shape them into that kind of a person. One thing we do is a book, and I've got it right here, but we have every one of our employees read a book called Good to Great. If you haven't read it, it's one of the most
Great
amazing
book.
books. It really teaches people about that and the culture, and also how to create the culture to help people want to be here for your company. And that can be a big part of it too. But, just try, like you said, slow it down if you can. Don't be afraid to make some mistakes in hiring. You're going to make some, but I will say this: if you realize that this person is wrong for your company, wrong for your culture, it hurts your other employees. I don't care how much revenue it is. If it's a negative to that, cut it. You've got to cut it. And it sounds vicious, and it sounds mean, and it sounds, capitalistic, or whatever you want to call it, but it can damage your company and your brand and your reputation so fast. It's almost scary.
Absolutely. So now we're going to jump to my second question, which is, if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say be fearless. It really does take that. I have talked to so many people. I was coaching football for my son, just, the little league football type stuff, 7th, 8th grade kind of a thing. One of my assistant coaches, great guy, still good friends to this day. He came up to me and says, we got talking about business. Like he goes, I have got the idea that I know will make me a millionaire. I just know it will. And I'm like, awesome. What is it? He's like, I'm not going to tell you, you'll go do it. And I said, well, one, I won't, but two, and I said, fine, don't tell, I don't care what it is. I said, why don't you go do it? He's like, he literally said, because I'm afraid I'll fail. And I think that has stopped more people from ever becoming successful than any other thing. And so if you're going to be an entrepreneur, I actually taught entrepreneurship class at our high school here for a while, just because I like doing it. I volunteered for it, and they let me do it and stuff. And I always told them, I said, look, if in business, yes, make make educated decisions, get as much information you can, and try to make them educated decisions. But at some point in time, you got to pull the trigger, and it will never be a perfect time. It's going to be a recession. It's going to be 2012. It's going to be, you don't have money. You don't have this. I had 6 kids, my power got shut off. And I was going to tell you, that Christmas, we lived out in kind of the boonies, so we were on a propane system, not natural gas. Well, we got home from my sister's again on the 23rd, and we didn't have any propane, so we had no way to heat our house. Couldn't run our stove. Couldn't run our dryer. We literally had nothing. We ran out of propane. We didn't have any to buy anymore. So, come Christmas Eve, we were just cuddled up in blankets, and we made the best of it. No, we weren't crying about it, and anyway, we got some. We ended up getting some that day. Believe it or not, someone heard about us and helped us a little bit, which was super nice. But again, you just got to be kind of fearless. And if you're not willing to invest money, and most of all, money and time, then just stop thinking about being an entrepreneur, because it's not for you. If you're not willing to invest those things and have take some risk and be a little bit fearless, it may not be for you. And entrepreneurism isn't for everybody. It's true. It's not. It can be a hard road. It can be scary. It can be, again, like I said, I had an amazing wife that supported me. But if you're not willing to take some risk, invest money and the time, then just stop thinking about it. Just stay at your job, do what you do, learn to love it, be your best at it, and forget it. Because if you go into it without being willing to do those things, I don't know if you'll ever make it.
No, and I agree with you, because and I always laugh, because to your point, you get a whole bunch of people say, I got the world's best ideas and it's going to change the world. And then it's like, I've come to, and because I do a lot on the IP side, and I hear a lot of and there are a lot of great ideas, but then it always comes down to is the execution of the idea, not the idea itself. Meaning, you can have the world's best idea. If you never do anything with it, guess what? Either one day somebody else will do it, and you'll say, I had that idea 10 years ago, and I could have been them, and say, well, but you didn't. Like, you have to actually follow through and execute. So it's always the execution of the idea that's the difference between somebody that's always just dreaming or the idea guy versus someone that actually builds something. So I think that there's a lot of wisdom to learn there.
Well, that thing we're doing with you on the trademark, we actually did a different version of it about 2 years ago. We lost about 30 grand on that one. But I'll tell you what we learned. What we learned was everything that we needed to do different and whatnot to get to the point where we're now working with you again. We're gonna relaunch it, repackage it, and kind of reformulate it. So it was the $30,000 learning experience, but
Mhm.
and we had the money to invest at that point. It wasn't very devastating at that point, but again, we still had to invest the time, had to invest the money. We did a risk. That quote unquote didn't work, but it prepared us for what's coming, and we think it's going to be a
Mhm.
lot better. And of course, you have a little bit of a clue what that is, but anyway.
Sure. No, I definitely agree with you. I think that sometimes even if it fails, you learn a lot and you say, okay, now when we do it again next time, we know all the things that we're going to do differently. But if you never get into it, you never try, you're definitely never going to have those successes, or you're going to have that opportunity. Well, as we wrap up, if people they want to hire you, they want to have you clean their carpets, they want to be an investor, they want to be an employee, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out or find out more?
Obviously for any cleaning services, things like that, our website's the easiest thing to go to. You can get all the information. We have some amazing before and after videos. They're just fun to watch, no matter if you need us in our service or not. They're just really cool. But it's just powerpluscleaning.com. Our website's on there. I mean, our phone number's on there, email's on there. If you're looking for a good employment opportunity, we're always looking for the right people. We're not looking for good people. We're looking for the right people. And literally, it's one of those things where we find the right person. We'll find a job for you
Mm.
if you're the right person. We do have opportunities for expansion if you want to, talk about possibly getting into being a partner with Power Plus in an area or franchise. It's not a franchise, we call it partnership, and there's details
Mhm.
that we can explain. But our website's always the best place to go to find out the most information for us.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage everybody to check it out, whether it's looking for employment, for a franchise, or for a partnership, looking for a carpet cleaner, or for any other reason, because there's certainly plenty of reasons to reach out. Well, thank you again, Devron, for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. We'd love to share your journey. Two more things as listeners. One, make sure to click subscribe in your podcast player so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so other people can find out about the awesome episodes. Last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. Thanks again, Devron, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Okay. Thanks again, Devin. We'll be talking to you soon.
Absolutely.